Captain Ta-Wu Kim stood tall as the massive doors to the Voskin Imperial Chamber slid open. The air inside felt thick with strange scents and the quiet hum of alien technology. This was his third month as Earth's ambassador to the Voskin Empire, but the strange customs still caught him off guard. "The Emperor will see you now," said Jin, his human assistant, voice tight with worry. Tai-Wu nodded and straightened his formal blue uniform. The future of Earth-Voskin relations rested on today's meeting. The mining rights to the Epsilon system were vital for Earth's growing population, and only Emperor Doran could grant them. The Imperial Chamber stretched before him like a vast ocean of polished black stone. Voskin guards lined the walls, their 4 arms each holding different ceremonial weapons. At the far end sat Emperor Doran on his floating throne, 6 eyes blinking in different patterns. "Ambassador Kim," the Emperor's voice boomed through the translator at Ta-Wu's ear. "We are pleased by your punctuality. Humans have much to learn, but timekeeping seems not to be among your deficiencies." Ta-Wu bowed precisely as he had been trained. "Emperor Doran, I bring greetings from Earth's United Council. We are honored by your invitation." The Emperor's skin shifted from deep purple to a lighter shade that Ta-Wu knew meant satisfaction. Behind him, Ta-Wu could hear the soft steps of his diplomatic team. Jin, Dr. Park, and Security Chief Su-min. "We have reviewed your proposal for the Epsilon mining rights," Emperor Doran said, waving one of his upper limbs. "It is acceptable." Ta-Wu felt a surge of relief but kept his face neutral. 6 months of negotiations and finally. But Emperor Doran raised 2 limbs now. Such arrangements between powers must be marked with proper ceremony. The Emperor clapped his hands, and 2 Voskin servants approached, carrying between them an ornate container. It was roughly the size of a small refrigerator, made of a silver-blue metal that seemed to glow from within. Strange patterns that looked like flowing water decorated its surface. "A gift," said Emperor Doran, "for our esteemed human ally." Ta-Wu felt Jin stiffen beside him. This wasn't in any of their briefings. "We are honored, Emperor," Ta-Wu said carefully. "This is our highest honor," the Emperor continued, "reserved only for those we consider true allies. The last ambassador to receive such a gift was from the Trelgan Confederacy 300 cycles ago." The box was placed before Ta-Wu. Up close, he could see it had no obvious opening, just a small interface on top with Voskin symbols that glowed blue. "What does it say?" Ta-Wu whispered to Jin. "It says, 'Unbox me,'" she replied, her voice barely audible. "Captain, I don't think." "Ambassador Kim," called Emperor Doran, "is the gift not to your liking?" All 6 of the Emperor's eyes were now focused on Ta-Wu. The chamber had grown silent. "It is magnificent," Ta-Wu said quickly. "I was simply admiring the craftsmanship." The Emperor's skin shifted to a pleased orange. "It will be transported to your quarters aboard Harmony Station. You may open it in private." As he straightened, he noticed Dr. Park's face had gone pale. Security Chief Su-min was staring at the box with narrowed eyes. Something wasn't right. The meeting concluded with the formal signing of the mining rights agreement. Throughout the ceremony, Ta-Wu couldn't help but notice how the Voskin officials kept glancing at the container, then at him, with what looked like anticipation. Back on the shuttle to Harmony Station, the mysterious gift sat secured in the cargo hold. Ta-Wu's team finally spoke freely. "Captain, there are rumors about these special gifts," said Dr. Park, looking troubled. "Nothing confirmed, but concerning." "What kind of rumors?" Ta-Wu asked. Su-min leaned forward. The box moved during transport. "There's something alive in there." Ta-Wu felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you suggesting?" Jin pulled up information on her tablet. "There's nothing in our diplomatic briefs about this type of gift, but I've been messaging other human stations. The Trelgan ambassador they mentioned. He returned home suddenly after receiving his gift." No explanation. The shuttle docked at Harmony, the joint human-Voskan space station that served as neutral ground. Several Voskan officials were waiting as they disembarked. "We will deliver the Emperor's gift to your private quarters, Ambassador," one said, bowing deeply. Taiwu watched as they handled the container with extreme care. As they lifted it, he was sure he saw the box shift slightly, as if something inside had moved. An hour later, Taiwu stood alone in his quarters, staring at the container. His team had wanted to be present when he opened it, but the Voskan officials had been clear. Tradition demanded he open it alone. The container sat on his floor, the blue symbols pulsing gently. "Unbox me." Taiwu's communication device beeped. It was a message from Earth Command. "Mining rights confirmed. Critical success. Handle all customs with respect. Report back on Voskan gift tradition." He took a deep breath and approached the box. As he got closer, he heard it, a faint sound from inside, something like breathing. His hand hovered over the interface. Protocol said to accept the gift graciously. Relations with the Voskans were too important to risk offense, but every instinct told him something was wrong. The box shifted again, more noticeably this time. Whatever was inside was definitely alive. Taiwu touched the interface. The symbols flashed once, then the top of the container began to unfold like a blooming flower, panels sliding away to reveal the interior. Taiwu stepped back, hand moving instinctively toward the emergency button on his wall. Inside the container, curled in a comfortable-looking space lined with soft material, was a humanoid figure. Female, with iridescent skin that shimmered in the light. Definitely not Voskan. Her eyes were closed, but as the container fully opened, they fluttered. The being looked up at him, large eyes blinking slowly. Then she spoke, her voice melodic, but with an undertone of resignation. "I am Heiyun of the Nari," she said in perfect English. Taiwu stared in shock as she gracefully rose to her feet. The mining rights, the Emperor's strange behavior, his team's concern, it all suddenly made horrible sense. The Emperor had gifted him a person. Taiwu stared at Heiyun, the iridescent-skinned Nari woman who had just emerged from the container. His mind raced, trying to process what was happening. She stood perfectly still, her large eyes watching him carefully. "This must be a mistake," he finally said, breaking the heavy silence that filled his quarters. "The Emperor gave you to me." "As what exactly?" Heiyun tilted her head slightly. "As your honored companion. This is considered the highest gift in Voskan culture." She spoke English flawlessly, her voice musical yet reserved. Taiwu ran a hand through his hair. "Where I come from, people aren't gifts." "I understand your discomfort," Heiyun said, taking a careful step out of the container. "Perhaps I should explain more clearly. I am not a slave. I am a diplomatic envoy who volunteered for this position." She paused, looking around the room before continuing in a lower voice. "Though Emperor Doran's framing of my role is not what I had anticipated." Taiwu gestured to a chair. "Please, sit down. You don't need to stand there like property." Heiyun finished for him, a hint of bitterness in her voice as she took the seat. "That is precisely what Emperor Doran intends you to think I am." Taiwu sat across from her, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. "Why would you volunteer for this?" Heiyun's skin rippled with subtle color changes, from pale blue to a deeper purple. Taiwu realized it might be an emotional response, like human blushing. "My people, the Nari, have been seeking alliance with humans for 3 solar cycles. The Voskan Empire has been steadily expanding into our territory. We've tried to establish direct contact with Earth, but the Voskans control all major communication channels in this sector." She leaned forward slightly. "When I heard Emperor Doran planned to present a gift to the new human ambassador, I volunteered. My government agreed it was our best chance to make contact." Taiwu's door chimed. He jumped up, suddenly aware of how this situation might appear to others. "That's likely my team," he said. "What should I tell them?" Heyoon's eyes widened. "If word reaches the Emperor that you've rejected his gift or revealed my true purpose, both our peoples could suffer. The Voskans do not take diplomatic insults lightly." Taewoo nodded and went to the door. Outside stood Jin, her face tight with concern. "Captain, I need to speak with you about the gift," she said urgently. "Come in," Taewoo replied, stepping aside. When Jin saw Heyoon, she froze. "I was right," Jin whispered. "They gifted you a concubine." "Not exactly," Taewoo said. "Jin, this is Heyoon. She's from the Nari Confederation." Heyoon stood and bowed slightly. "Honored to meet you." Jin remained by the door, visibly uncomfortable. "Captain, this is a serious cultural incident. We need to contact Earth Command immediately." "Let me explain first," Heyoon said, her voice taking on a more formal tone. "In Voskan culture, gifting intelligent companions is considered their highest honor. They genuinely believe humans practice similar customs." Taewoo raised an eyebrow. Where would they get that idea? Heyoon's skin rippled again. "Your entertainment broadcasts. The Voskans intercept and study them. They've seen human shows where people serve others, where wealth buys companionship. They don't understand the context or fiction." Jin finally moved into the room, the door sliding shut behind her. "So this is all a misunderstanding." "Partially," Heyoon said, "but also a test. Emperor Doran wants to see how you respond. If you treat me as property, it confirms his belief that humans are morally equivalent to Voskans, that you would make good allies because you share their values." Taewoo paced the small room. "And if I refuse the gift?" "It would be seen as a grave insult," Heyoon said. Jin tapped on her tablet. "Captain, I've been researching. The last 3 species who refused gifts from the Emperor faced trade sanctions within months." Taewoo stopped pacing. "So I'm supposed to pretend to accept you as what? A slave? A concubine? This goes against everything Earth stands for." Heyoon's expression softened slightly. "There may be a middle path. Accept me officially as your honored companion, but in private, help me establish contact with my government. The Nari have resources that would benefit Earth far more than what the Voskans offer." Taewoo and Jin exchanged glances. "I'll need to inform the rest of the team," Taewoo said. "Carefully," Heyoon warned. "The Voskans have listening devices throughout Harmony Station. That's why I was hoping to speak with you alone first." Jin looked around nervously, even in the ambassador's quarters. "Especially here," Heyoon said. She pulled a small device from a hidden pocket in her clothing and pressed it. A soft hum filled the room. "This will block simple surveillance for a short time." Taewoo sat down again, feeling the weight of the situation. "Tell me about your people. What exactly do the Nari want from an alliance with Earth?" "We need military support against Voskan expansion," Heyoon said bluntly. "In exchange, we offer technology centuries beyond what the Voskans have shared with you. They've been keeping humans deliberately underdeveloped." Jin gasped. "That's a serious accusation." "It's true," Heyoon insisted. "The mining rights they just granted you. The ore contains elements that could advance your propulsion systems by generations, but they've supplied you with outdated extraction methods that destroy those elements in the process." Taewoo felt a chill run down his spine. "Can you prove this?" Heyoon's skin turned a deep blue. "Given access to your engineering systems, yes. I was a science officer before joining the diplomatic corps." The device in her hand beeped softly. "The scrambler is running out of power. We must decide quickly." Taewoo stood up. "For now, I'll officially accept you as my companion. But I need time to verify your claims before risking Earth's relationship with the Voskans." Heyoon nodded. "Reasonable. But be aware, Ambassador Kim, Emperor Doran, will be watching your every interaction with me. He expects you to treat me as property, not as an equal. Then he'll be disappointed, Ta Wu said firmly. On Earth, we abandoned such practices centuries ago. Perhaps, He-Yun said, her voice soft but intense. That is exactly what he fears. The scrambler gave one final beep and went silent. Somewhere in the walls, Ta Wu imagined Voskin listening devices coming back online, recording every word, analyzing every interaction. The game had begun. 3 weeks had passed since He-Yun's arrival, and Ta Wu's quarters on Harmony Station had become a center of secret activity. Tonight, they sat across from each other at his small dining table, data tablets between them showing star maps and fleet movements. The Voskin Third Fleet has moved to the Kelnar system, He-Yun said quietly, her iridescent skin glowing softly in the dim light. That's less than 2 light years from Nari's outer colonies. Ta Wu studied the map with a frown. That matches what our scouts reported last week. They claimed it was a routine patrol. There is nothing routine about positioning 3 dreadnoughts near civilian planets, He-Yun said, her skin darkening with concern. The door chimed. He-Yun quickly switched the tablets to display dinner recipes as Ta Wu called. Enter. Jin walked in carrying a small package. Since He-Yun's arrival, Jin had become their most trusted ally. She had helped maintain the illusion that He-Yun was merely Ta Wu's companion, while secretly helping them gather intelligence. Your special spices from Earth, Ambassador, Jin said loudly for the benefit of any listening devices. Then she tapped her ear and pointed to the Thank you, Jin. He-Yun has been teaching me about Nari cuisine. Quite fascinating. Once Jin left, He-Yun activated her scrambler. The device would only work for 5 minutes before needing to recharge. We need to talk about what happened with Chief Engineer Min yesterday, He-Yun said urgently. Min had been skeptical when Ta Wu asked him to let He-Yun examine the mining equipment specifications. It had taken all Ta Wu's diplomatic skill to convince him without revealing their true purpose. Min has agreed to let you review the extraction protocols tomorrow, Ta Wu said. But he's confused why my companion needs access to technical systems. He-Yun's expression grew serious. I've gathered enough evidence to prove my claims. The Voskins have given you extraction technology that destroys the most valuable elements in the ore, elements that could advance your space travel capabilities by decades. Ta Wu leaned back in his chair. Over the past weeks, he had come to trust He-Yun. Her intelligence and dedication to her people impressed him. More than that, he had seen firsthand how the Voskins treated other species when they thought humans weren't watching. We need to get this information to Earth Command, he said. But all our communications are monitored. He-Yun nodded. That's why I've been working with your communications officer, Su-Min. We've developed a way to hide messages in routine reports. The scrambler beeped its 1-minute warning. There's something else you should know, He-Yun said quickly. The gift, me, was a test. If you had treated me as property, it would have confirmed Emperor Doran's belief that humans are no different from Voskins morally. Then why does he still watch us so closely? I've never once treated you as a possession. He-Yun's skin rippled with colors. Because you surprised him. He expected you to either embrace or reject Voskin customs. Instead, you've walked a middle path. He's fascinated by this. The scrambler went silent. They returned to discussing recipes until Jin returned an hour later with a datapad. Dr. Park has completed the cultural analysis you requested, Ambassador, she said. Ta Wu took the pad. Understanding this was their secure way to share information. Dr. Park had discovered something important. Later that night, after checking for surveillance, Ta Wu reviewed the data. Dr. Park had found evidence of other gifts throughout the Voskin Empire. Members of various species presented as honors to officials and allies. Together, they formed a hidden network of effective captives. More disturbing was what Dr. Park had uncovered about the Trelgan ambassador, who had previously received such a gift. He hadn't returned home voluntarily. He had been executed by his own government for accepting what they viewed as a slave, a violation of their most sacred laws. The next morning, Towu met with his core team in a maintenance section of Harmony Station that Su-min had certified as surveillance-free. Hae-yoon's information checks out, said Chief Engineer Min, who now looked at the Nari woman with new respect. The extraction protocols would destroy 80% of the Epsilon 7 element. With her suggested modifications, we could preserve almost all of it. Dr. Park added, I've analyzed communications from 17 Voskan outposts. They refer to humans as useful primitives in their internal messages. Towu looked at his team, humans who had put their careers and possibly lives at risk to uncover the truth. Then at Hae-yoon, who had risked everything to reach them. We need to establish direct contact with the Nari government, he said decisively. Su-min, can you modify our long-range communications to bypass Voskan relays? And a distraction, Jin added. Emperor Doran has requested your presence at a hunting expedition next week. It would be the perfect opportunity. Most of the Voskan officials will be away from the station. Hae-yoon's skin brightened. If we succeed, my government can send a diplomatic vessel to this sector. We could establish formal relations with Earth directly. Towu felt the weight of the decision. If they were caught, it would mean the end of his career at minimum, possibly even war between Earth and the Voskan Empire. But the alternative, allowing the Voskans to continue manipulating humanity while threatening the Nari, was worse. We do this carefully, he said finally. Su-min, prepare the communications array. Min, implement Hae-yoon's modifications to the mining protocols, but keep them looking standard. Jin, find out everything you can about the hunting expedition. Dr. Park, continue your research on Voskan communication patterns. He turned to Hae-yoon, whose eyes shone with hope. And you need to prepare a message for your government. Something clear, concise, and convincing. What will you tell Emperor Doran when he asks why you've been spending so much time with your gift, but not in the way he intended? Dr. Park asked. Towu smiled for the first time in days. I'll tell him humans build relationships differently than Voskans. We value minds as much as bodies. Hae-yoon's skin flushed with colors that Towu had come to recognize as a mixture of gratitude and determination. Whatever happens, she said softly, you've already proven Emperor Doran wrong about humanity. That alone is a victory. 1 week later, as the Emperor's hunting party departed Harmony Station, Towu stood at the viewing port and waved farewell. Behind him, in a secured communications room, his team prepared to change the future of 3 species. Towu's stomach tightened as he walked through the ornate entrance to Emperor Doran's private chambers. The message had come unexpectedly. The Emperor requests your immediate presence, leaving no time to prepare or coordinate with his team. The hunting expedition had ended 3 days early. That alone was cause for concern. 2 Voskan guards escorted him into a circular room dominated by a collection of strange objects, trophies from conquered worlds. Towu realized. The Emperor sat on a floating chair at the center, all 6 eyes blinking in an unsettling rhythm. Ambassador Kim, Emperor Doran said, his translator making his deep voice sound almost musical. I hope you have been enjoying my gift. Towu bowed precisely. Emperor Doran, I am honored by your attention. The Emperor's skin shifted to a yellowish hue. You did not answer my question. Towu kept his face neutral. Hae-yoon has been a most interesting cultural exchange. I have learned much about Nari customs. Cultural exchange. The Emperor's upper limbs made a gesture the translator didn't interpret. Curious phrasing. You have not displayed her at official functions as is customary. On Earth, Emperor Doran floated closer. Yet you have allowed her unusual freedoms. Access to technical systems. Communications. Your engineer's workspace. His voice hardened. Are these also Earth customs? The air in the room seemed to grow colder. Ta Wu's mind raced. They had been watched more closely than he realized. "We believe that companions should develop their full potential," he replied. "Heiyun has shown aptitude for technical matters." Indeed. The Emperor gestured to a wall, which became transparent, revealing another room. Inside sat Heiyun, surrounded by Voskan guards. Tai Wu struggled to maintain his composure. "Why is she being detained?" "Detained?" Emperor Doran's skin rippled with dark patterns. "I am simply ensuring my gift remains intact." Tai Wu watched Heiyun through the transparent wall. She sat perfectly still, her face calm despite the guards, but her skin had darkened to a deep blue that he knew meant fear. "I know of your communications attempts," Doran continued. "The encrypted messages sent from Harmony Station to the Praxis sector." Tai Wu felt cold fear grip his chest. Praxis was where the Nari homeworld was located. "Standard reports to Earth Command," Ta Wu lied. "All diplomatic missions send them. Do not insult my intelligence, Ambassador." Emperor Doran's voice grew dangerously soft. "We intercepted fragments. Enough to understand their nature." The Emperor floated to a display pedestal. A holographic image appeared, the modified mining equipment specs that Heiyun had created. "Curious improvements," Doran said. "Ones that would preserve elements we have carefully kept from human hands for centuries." Tai Wu remained silent, evaluating his options. Denial seemed pointless. "The Nari have been seeking alliance with humans," the Emperor continued. "We have known this. It is why we brought you to this sector first. Why we arranged for you to receive mining rights that would keep your people satisfied with limited benefits. While you take the real prize," Ta Wu said, abandoning pretense. "As is our right," Doran said simply. "The strong determine how resources are distributed. This is the natural order." Ta Wu thought of his team back on Harmony Station. Were they also being detained? Had their plan been discovered completely? "What happens now?" he asked. Emperor Doran's skin lightened. "That depends on you, Ambassador Kim. Tomorrow is the Grand Assembly. Representatives from 12 species will attend. You will publicly accept Heiyun as your property, acknowledging the great honor I have bestowed upon you. And if I refuse?" The Emperor's eyes all blinked at once. "Then you and Heiyun will be declared spies. The consequences would be severe for both your species." Tai Wu looked again at Heiyun. She had noticed him now and was staring back, her expression unreadable. "You've planned this from the beginning," Ta Wu realized. "The gift was never meant to be accepted privately." "Of course not," Emperor Doran said, sounding almost "Values Earth does not share," Ta Wu stated firmly. "Then you face a difficult choice," the Emperor said. "Compromise your values or appear hostile to Voskan customs. Either way, it serves my purpose. If you accept, your people will be seen as embracing our ways. If you refuse, it justifies our caution in limiting human expansion." Tai Wu understood the trap now. The Emperor had created a no-win situation. Either Earth would be seen as morally compromised by other species, or as culturally insensitive and hostile, justifying Voskan control. "I need time to consider," Tai Wu said. "You have until tomorrow's ceremony," Emperor Doran replied. "For now, you may speak with your gift. Perhaps she can help you decide." The wall separating the rooms disappeared. The guards stepped back, allowing Ta Wu to approach Heiyun. "Are you harmed?" he asked quietly. "No," she whispered, "but they found our communication array." Su Min managed to send most of the message before they interrupted. Ta Wu felt a small spark of hope. The others, "Detained but safe," Heiyun said. Her skin rippled with subtle colors as she added, "The message contained the coordinates for the Grand Assembly." Tai Wu understood the implication. If the Nari had received the message, they might send help, but not in time for tomorrow's ceremony. "The Emperor wants me to publicly accept you as property," he told her. Heyun's skin darkened. I know. It is what the Trelgan ambassador refused to do. His execution was broadcast throughout Voskan space as a warning. Tugwu took a deep breath. I won't declare you property, but I also can't risk war between Earth and the Voskan Empire. There is perhaps another way, Heyun said very quietly, but it requires perfect timing and courage. As the guards watched, she leaned closer and began to explain her plan, her words barely audible even to Tawu. Emperor Doran observed them from across the room, his 6 eyes blinking in that unsettling pattern, confident in his perfect trap. But he had made one critical mistake. He had allowed them to speak. The Grand Assembly Hall of Harmony Station gleamed with polished surfaces and colorful displays from a dozen different worlds. Representatives from 12 spacefaring species filled the curved seating areas, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. At the center stood a raised platform where Emperor Doran waited, his purple skin shifting with patterns of anticipation. Taiwu stood at the entrance, his blue diplomatic uniform freshly pressed. Behind him, 4 Voskan guards escorted Heyun, who wore ceremonial Voskan garments that marked her status as a gift. Her iridescent skin was unusually pale, but her eyes remained determined. It is time, Ambassador, a Voskan official whispered. The Emperor awaits. Taiwu nodded and began his walk down the central aisle. He could feel hundreds of eyes tracking his movement, some curious, some sympathetic, others calculating. His team, Jin, Dr. Park, Su Min, and Engineer Min, had been brought to the ceremony as witnesses, but were really hostages, ensuring his cooperation. Ambassador Kim, Emperor Doran's voice boomed through the hall as Taiwu reached the platform. Today we celebrate the strengthening bonds between our empires. The Emperor gestured to Heyun, who was guided forward by the guards. As is our ancient tradition, I have honored you with a companion of rare quality. Today, you will formally accept this gift before the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most esteemed species. Taiwu looked out at the audience. Many shifted uncomfortably. This practice was not as universally accepted as the Emperor pretended. The acceptance ritual is simple, Emperor Doran continued. You will place this collar of honor around her neck, signifying your authority and her new status. A Voskan servant presented a gleaming metal band on a cushion. Taiwu took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few moments. Emperor Doran, he began, his voice clear and strong. Before I participate in this ritual, I would like to express my gratitude for this cultural exchange opportunity. The Emperor's skin rippled with satisfaction. On Earth, we have a tradition of our own. Taiwu continued. When receiving a gift of great significance, we first share our understanding of its meaning, to show proper appreciation. A slight confusion passed over the Emperor's features, but he nodded permission. Taiwu turned to address the assembled representatives directly. Distinguished guests, I stand before you as Earth's ambassador, honored to share how humans view relationships between intelligent beings. He moved away from the Emperor, claiming the center of the platform. In human history, we once practiced ownership of persons. We called it slavery. It brought unimaginable suffering and shame upon our species. Murmurs spread through the audience. The Emperor's skin darkened with anger, but interrupting now would seem petty before the assembly. Through centuries of growth, we learned that true strength comes not from domination, but from respecting the dignity and freedom of all sentient beings. Today, I am proud to announce that Earth wishes to extend this respect throughout the galaxy. Taiwu's gaze swept the room, making eye contact with representatives from various species. I hereby propose a human-Nari cultural exchange program, open to all species represented here today, including the Voskan Empire. Not as masters and servants, but as equals learning from each other's knowledge and perspectives. The Emperor stepped forward. Ambassador Kim, you mistake the purpose of this ceremony. The gift is not a gift at all. Heyun interrupted. her voice ringing out. The guards moved to silence her, but stopped when several representatives stood in protest. Heyoon stepped forward, her skin brightening to a brilliant blue. "I am Minister Heyoon of the Nari Diplomatic Corps, not the concubine I was presented as." She reached into her ceremonial garment and removed a small device. When activated, it projected her credentials for all to see. The Nari people have sought peaceful contact with humans for years, but Voskan interference prevented it. This gifting was my only opportunity to reach Earth's representatives. The assembly erupted in chaotic discussion. Emperor Doran's skin had turned almost black with rage. "This is deception," he hissed. "Guards, remove them both." But before the guards could move, a new voice called from the back of the hall. The representative from Talaxis recognizes Minister Heyoon and supports her right to speak. Then another voice. "The Moroni Confederation stands with the Nari minister." And another. "The Jolton Observer Mission acknowledges Minister Heyoon's diplomatic status." Tawu felt a surge of hope as more representatives stood. The plan was working. Heyoon had told him there were others like her throughout the imperial court, representatives of various species, gifted to officials, forming a hidden network of effective captives. She had sent them a signal during her detention, and they had spread the word to their governments. From around the assembly hall, other gifted individuals stood. Some removed similar devices showing their credentials. Others simply stepped away from their Voskan owners, claiming their freedom with quiet dignity. Emperor Doran looked around in shock as his carefully constructed system began to crumble before his eyes. "This is a violation of sacred Voskan tradition," he declared. "These beings were willingly given as honors." "Were they?" Tawu asked, his voice calm but carrying. "Or were they diplomatic hostages, used to control their governments through fear of what might happen?" "You have made a grave mistake, Ambassador. Earth will suffer for this insult." Before Tawu could respond, the hall's main doors slid open. A delegation of tall, elegantly dressed Nari entered, led by an elder whose skin shimmered with patterns of authority. "The Nari High Council received Minister Heyoon's message," the elder announced. "We are here to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth and any other species who wish for honest alliance." Heyoon's skin brightened with joy at the sight of her people. Emperor Doran faced a choice. He could continue to protest, but with representatives from 12 species witnessing the truth, his empire's reputation would suffer irreparable damage. Or he could adapt. After a long moment, the emperor's skin gradually shifted to a neutral purple. "The Voskan Empire recognizes the changing nature of interspecies relations," he said stiffly. "We will participate in this cultural exchange program to demonstrate our flexibility." It wasn't an apology, but it was a retreat. And everyone knew it. As the assembly reorganized itself into impromptu diplomatic discussions, Tawu's team rushed to join him on the platform. Jin looked both terrified and exhilarated. "That was the most reckless, brilliant thing I've ever seen," she whispered. Heyoon approached Tawu, her skin glowing with the brightest colors he had yet seen. "Thank you," she said simply. "Your courage has changed everything." Tawu smiled. "Not my courage alone. You risked far more." The Nari elder joined them. "Ambassador Kim, the Nari High Council extends an invitation for Earth to send a diplomatic mission to our homeworld. We have much to discuss about our mutual future." Tawu bowed respectfully. Earth would be honored. Across the hall, Emperor Doran watched them with all 6 eyes, his skin shifting through complex patterns. The game had changed, but it wasn't over. The Voskan Empire had suffered a setback, but not defeat. For now, though, a small victory for freedom had been won. As representatives from a dozen worlds began forming new connections, freed from Voskan control, Tawu realized that humanity had revealed not just its values, but its potential as a galactic force for positive change.